Okay, today is October 17th, and this is going to be an example to complement the other video. Basically, it's using a development server on the local machine to pick up a webhook that's sent out from Benchmark. So I'm going to follow the same steps as before without all the explanations. Basically, the breakdown is this. We've got the prerequisites of these items, and then here's our step-by-step. The only additional element from this and the previous video is at this time I have my server running, and this is on port 5000 for ngrok. And what that's done is that's allowed the forwarding to go to my local server that I'm running on port 5000 masked with the ngrok subdomain. So here we have the application, and when I open it in Visual Studio Code, it's already running. Let's stop it. We can see all the files here. So I'll give the basic breakdown, and that's going to be the routes are listed here. I've added this one here as a webhook route, and it's going to be watching for posts that go to webhook benchmark with the host name that we'll get from ngrok. So whenever it gets that, it then will run the functionality that is configured in the controller. That's going to be right here. And that's just going to be, it's going to send back a query string, stringified QS, as a return. And I'm doing that because I want to specifically show what the response would normally look like in its raw format, and I have to modify it because I have express body parser for JSON true, and it's turning it into JSON before I can give the raw example. So with that in mind, we've got the whole setup ready to go. I'm going to hit F5 to start the debugging. And now we're in debugging mode. It's listening. And then I can go over to Postman, and I already know what my ngrok subdomain is. So I've put it right there. And then I've complemented it with webhook/benchmark. I pinned it on there. And then in the headers, I'm sending this as application xww form URL. It's just like a, it's going to be just like a webhook would send out. It's going to send out a post. It's going to send out the data like this. It's going to send out a body like this. And as a matter of fact, I got this from a different example that was actually, this was the payload from a benchmark webhook. And here it is. You can see I've already ran a few examples with a 200 good response. And with ngrok running to catch the webhook subdomain for the base URL, and then with the server running to catch the path of the URI, I'm going to send this out. Okay, and I've got a breakpoint here, so let's just jump over to it. And that was just to review some data. I don't need to do that, but I'm going to continue that. Turn off that breakpoint. And then there's my response. So it's completed. I don't know of a way I can actually delete it, but let's just turn this in and get a bad response. That'll get a delete. It'll get an error message or something. Okay, so let's just do that again from this example. Again, I've got my host, ngrok, and then I've got the port 5000 running the application to catch the URI path. Headers are set, body is set, and that's a post I'm going to send. And then there's the response back. The debugger is still running, that's why it picked that up, and I took off that breakpoint. So now what I'm going to do, just to finish out the example, is I'm going to remove the QS stringify save it, which I didn't want that. Save it. And now I'm going to run the debugger again. Let's run it a different way now. Launch the program. And now it's running. And now I'm going to send the request. And this time it won't get that data that would normally be sent. The body parser in Express is going to parse it out into JSON format. And there we go. So that's the result back from the webhook. So now what I'll do is I'll actually take this URL, now that it's been tested in Postman, and now I'm going to go through with the rest of the example. And what I mean by that is here I needed to search for my list out of contacts search filter. So let's go over there to Postman, because now what I'm going to do, let's just remember where I am here. I'm in Slack webhooks. Okay, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through an automated process. I'm going to log this ID. I'm going to update the webhook URL. Okay, let's just confirm that it has the right ID number for what I'm looking for. 159. There it is. Wait a second, that's not the one I want. I want 159783, and it's just ID singular, list ID. There it is. Okay, so there's that. Now, the next step is going to be to get the webhooks, because I need a webhook ID next, so I'm using that list ID in this call. And I have that set up here. I'm going to send that. And there's my previous example webhook that I was using. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to update that. The only reason I sent that is because my automated process is going to store that as an ID for that webhook ID that's associated with this list ID. So with that information, I can now make the patch to update the URL. And I'm going to update that in my environmental variables. And here it is now. I'm going to edit that. And my new URL is going to be the one that I just tested in Postman. Let's enter that. So now we want to send that. That was the previous one. This is the new one. And right here was our previous payload when we updated it before. Now we're going to update it again. And there it has the new one ready to go. So anytime an unsubscribe occurs, it should trigger that and send that response back. So let's do that now. And we can monitor for that right here as it arrives. So let's go into the platform. This was our old view of the old URL, but since we refreshed it in the API, let's see that it took the refresh. Okay, put me back on the list. So let me go into the API, the webhooks. And there's our new one that we updated. And I have an email already setting out there that was sent earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that account and I'm going to unsubscribe from one of those emails. We'll use this one here. This was sent to, okay, it didn't come up. Let's do that again. This one was sent to user 10 test 10. So now I'm going to do an unsubscribe. Okay, and now let's go watch for our webhook to arrive. and that's going to be for user 10. So that's what we'll watch for over here in the summary. We're going to look for 10 because that was our test from just now. This was an earlier test. Let's refresh. And we'll give it a few minutes for that to arrive. Okay, and it just arrived. That took about a minute and a half at the most, I would say. And now we can confirm that is that user, and we'll take a look at the headers just for historic purposes. Here's the body as it's sent in and parsed out with the details of that test user. So that will conclude this example. And in summary, what we simply did was we updated our webhook that's registered with a specific list. We then had a recipient unsubscribe, which triggered the webhook to send a post request to our ngrok server. And by this example, we had ngrok set up and it's catching the data on the actual local server. So that's everything.